I am going to tell you a little bit about this from the LAC perspective. We believe that we need to scale up, but we also need to regionalize or tropicalize, as some of us say. I basically want to focus on three things. The first one, because we have enough evidence, that we need to do something more. There needs to be something more. And I very briefly want to tell you three cases that in my country visits I've been able to see for myself. One was in Honduras, in Marcala, with the Comucap co-op, where you can find transformational leadership of women. It's amazing what they've been through. Diversification of their products. They have earned international prizes in the coffee and the quality coffee that they produce. They have semi-industrial processes in place, but formal banking has the system has rejected them, and they have not been granted loans even to finance their coffee crop harvest. Finally, after fighting and struggles, it, they got it, but it's a daily problem for them. It's a situation that goes on and on. It's a difficulty in trying to get loans. Another thing is something I saw last week here in Colombia, in Lorica, in San Bernardo de los Vientos, an organization, a grassroots organization called Asprogis. Same thing happened. They have transformational leadership in place. It's amazing. It's encouraged and driven by the right to land. They have production in some communities, some extremely poor communities, and they have production going on, but they have moved from production for self-consumption to having some surplus, but they also face considerant obstacles in getting access to either microloans or to formal loans, but they also face difficulties in trying to build their capacities, their capabilities in terms of how to improve and develop or grow their business. And the third case that I want to mention, because this is one that touched my heart, but it's also I want to share these ideas. This was in Nicaragua with the Women's Association Nueva Esperanza in Bonanza, in Las Limas region. It's an extremely poor region, and these are women that are growing coffee, chocolate, and they face enormous difficulties, but they also have transformational leadership, and they have purchased their own land. They have come against their co-op partners, the men. They have challenged the men in the co-op to be able to profit from the funds and that they are receiving. But as in the previous examples, are no there's no room for greater opportunity. There are no possibilities to strengthen their capacities to negotiate, to barter for the cocoa, to improve their quality in order to have their own brand. And in marketing, let me tell you how they market. With a little box, they ride the bus. They take the chocolate in the bus, and they take it to sell in the Atlantic coast. However, they have generated so much profit that now they have their own facilities to process cocoa. So, what we're really talking about is small businesses, small enterprises that are growing. And so this is a segment or an area where in the handouts that you've received, it's called in the middles, that they don't apply for microcredits, but microloans, but they're not at a level where they can access formal banking either. So this is a very important learning experience for us, because here we are talking about one of the largest gaps for inequality in the region. Second thing, but not less important, is our programmatic framework. And this framework is grounded or based on our global objective number one, which to us in the region has been framed as a regional priority. It has been labeled as first priority at a regional level, and it is called, or it's called, how can we get more power for women? This is how we've called them, and how can we get more power for women in the markets and the value chains? And this is definitely something important, because it has allowed us, as Hugo mentioned, to test tools that are creating this transformational leadership in women, so they can become more empowered economically or financially. A third element has to do with how the EDP has been managed globally. This is what Hugo presented to us. And well, it's being managed from our headquarters in a centralized fashion, and this learning experience it has been based in the business plan more than in the feasibility of the business, and especially in the construction of the capacities to really be able to lead and manage a business. Obviously, this involves very high costs for transactions when talking about closeness and country visits and the projects that could take place, but we also have limited resources, because we had to share the resource with all the regions. And this placed us as LAC, or gave us a considerable challenge, or placed us on a difficult situation on figuring out how can we leverage the separate resources while building capabilities. But we also needed to generate the conditions to give birth to these pre-investments and then to investment. So with these three topics, we wanted to look for a way to tropicalize the the this with a but with a learning experience, and this learning experience needed to be grounded. And it is not enough to channel resources, but it is not enough either to, even though it was a considerable effort of monitoring and providing assistance, we really needed to give it a focus that was more systemic in nature, in such a way that we could integrate it and see it as a whole, as a package, and not isolate it. And this would make the difference. This would differentiate us from other NGOs that are giving or providing these types of services, but they don't necessarily have the seeking of the economic empowerment of women as a motive. So, lastly, with these three arguments, what we ambition, what we want, what we're betting on for the theory of change, we want in contributing to reducing inequalities in the region. With these three initiatives for enterprises, we want to look for these models to carry out effective interventions in business in enterprise development, because we want to build this evidence, this proof, to really show that there is potential, that they can be competitive, and that we have a specific number of goals of enterprises, mainly led by women, and with this we want to impact in policymakers and in business models that, like we saw today in the morning, this is also a mechanism to work and impact or advocate in ideas and beliefs in the work we do with the private sector. So, to sum up, we believe that these contributions will allow us to add our grain of our own contribution and value to this growth with quality that we're looking for the region.